Let's welcome to the Kenosis journey, life formation journey that I would like to introduce the 6 months of what the module, just to some brief references of what exactly the modules are. This is everything that exists is formed. The rivers are formed, the mountains are formed. If you look at everything in life is formed. We believe that God, who created, formed everything and shaped everything, including our own physical structure. So, formation of life happens usually through the stimulation of the environment, the culture, the family pressures, the family, the way they nurture us, are the self that we think we know is is formed. However, in life, there are so many things we prepare ourselves for. Not all those preparation is formational. What happens after preparing, for an exam, and then we write the exam? That's when formation happens, especially when the results come in how we respond to the results internally. It's what how our heart begins to form, whether it be disappointments that shape us or acceptance. Yeah, it's okay. I got less marks this time. But maybe I'll try better next time. That's another way to look at it, where formation becomes more positive. So, as we look at the church of Jesus Christ, we realize that there are several things outside that has been influencing us. And today, we think about God, but we don't necessarily know how to experience God. I'm not saying this is true for all of us. Uh, for nearly 27 years of my life, I uh, went through the motions of being in a program and thinking that this was formational, or thinking that this was really what it means to experience God. And until I realized that it was not true. So let me share my screen so that we can catch up with what I'm trying to take you through here so that you understand uh, what this journey is about. So we call it the kenosis journey simply because in the book of Philippians, Paul says that Jesus Christ was, though he was God, he submitted himself to the uh, godship of the Father and the Spirit and became human. And it was so natural for God to become human and function in human to show us what God had intended in his mind when he thought of humanity. So we want to begin by asking the question, why do I desire to participate in this journey? So if you have a piece of paper, you want to write that question and reflect on it. What, why do I want to be in a journey of formation for the rest of my life? This is not a program. This is not something you do for 6 months and you forget about it. This is a way of life. This is a way of waiting with God, walking with God, and working with God. So let me ask you this question. What three changes do you wish that you like to see, uh, that you would wish for God um, to do in the world, to make in the world? The second question, what two changes do you wish for God to do in your local community? And finally, what is the one thing you want to know? What's the one thing you desire and longing change and you have felt powerless to change? So, this is what we will be thinking about as we think about what do I need to change? And by understanding the human condition and practicing gratefulness, how will that help? Experiencing God, so. That is going to be the way we resolve the human condition. Then as you sit in the presence of God, you'll begin to know more about yourself, your wounds, your compulsions, and what kind of energy drives our personality, and the pain that we have carried and we are carrying for many, many years. So, this understanding of the pain will help us to cultivate a calling based on God's gift. The pain that we have endured and found comfort in, that is what is going to nurture our calling, cultivate our calling, so that we can share in the pain of the world, so that we can practice compassion. And then when we learn to practice compassion, we will see humanity in such a different way, that we can embrace people as they are without judgmentalism. And so we can welcome people, and they will be attracted to us when we are a calm and non anxious presence. And in that way, we are able to build a community by practicing hospitality. And so, in the module one, we'll talk about how do I become faithful? How does acknowledging God restore the human condition? And it's a study of the book of Hosea, where we will look at God says, my people do not acknowledge me because they have become unfaithful. So, based on that, we will study that Hosea, through that marriage with a woman who was giving herself to many different lovers, how their the offspring or the outcome of that relationship produces Jezreel, Rohama, and Loami, wounded, unloved, forsaken. These are the human experience when our relationship with God is cut off. So we will be studying about the human predicament, how Jezreel God sows, meaning it, how that leads to death, no more life, or end of life. Loruhama, no more love. How the end of love. Uh, and then Lo Ami, no more belonging. In other words, we begin to experience loneliness and not having the relationship with God, which will end in kind of death, uh, from life. So we will learn how to abide in God, how to come back to God and abide and adore Him, and to commit ourselves to Him. This is requires accountability, and so practicing faithfulness simply means coming back and consistently coming back. Okay, so in the module two, when we come back to God, we will experience Him, and thereby we are able to build trust in Him. We'll talk about the Jacob factor, the life of Jacob, who started as a deceiver because his family nurtured him that way, to tell lies, to be deceitful. And he runs, runs to achieve, to manipulate relationships, to deceive. And in his running out of tiredness, he falls asleep and has the experience of God presence flowing into his life. And the narration of angels descending and ascending is about how the God's presence is coming to him. And suddenly he wakes up and realizes, oh, God is in this place. And he calls it the house of God. That is his first experience that leads him to the next experience, because he doesn't surrender. Even though he experiences God, it takes a while before he surrenders. And that is the Peniel experience, where he wrestles with God. God bless me, I will not let you go. Then that struggling, there is an enormous pain. So pain is part of our struggle. And there, when he lets go, he sees God face to face. It transforms his life. Again, practicing faithfulness and trust. So we are learning to trust by being present with God. That requires accountability. That's why we want to stay in community. Again, abiding and aligning through confession, through reading of scriptures, through watching an image of divine image, what we call it. and worship music, by reading the scripture and putting ourselves in the story of the gospels, uh, kind of meditating on it, and then praying in silence, letting go more and more of ourselves so that we can surrender to God. These are practical things that we will learn. And once we experience God, we will learn what does it mean to know ourselves. The more we come close to God, the more we will understand who we are. How does by how does experiencing God lead to the surrender of self? First of all, there is two self kinds of self. One is the self that is given by God, which is God's image in us, the true self. On the other hand, there is the conscious self, which is created by our culture, meaning our families give us values for certain things, our teachers, our friends, our culture, social media, all shapes us into what is called as who do I think I am? Or who do people think I am? So it's not the real person. We are trying to project another person, and that's why it's the egotistic self, which is judgmental. Except, so you can read that. I'm leaving it here for a while, and then we will talk about personality pearls, the energy behind our personality. What are the compulsions in us? What are the things that we are compelled to do and be, and the kind of personality, that is comes forth as anger, as shame, or as fear. So we'll talk more about it. It's an amazing tool called Enneagram, 3rd century Egyptian spirituality, Christian spirituality. And again, practicing surrender requires for us to be accountable. Again, the same practices is going to be the same thing. Module 4, we'll talk about cultivating call, practicing compassion. Now, once we know ourselves and our pain, we are able to uh, offer comfort to those who are also in similar pain. That is how we cultivate our call. We're going to use the story of Joseph, who was wounded, who was unloved, rejected by his own family, and forsaken in the pit, and how he begins to practice the presence of God, how he experiences God, that God was always with him. And through that, his story is a beautiful story of metabolizing or healing of the pain and the gifts that he learns by practicing and practicing how to interpret dreams and how to create a plan to run the prison, run the household, and eventually the plan to be the governor of Egypt, the government. So again, the practical steps to acknowledge God would be the same again. And then we come to the fifth module where we will, now that we know our pain and how our pain is comforted, we will be able to take the comforting present to engage the culture where people are having similar experience, practicing hospitality. The reason why we would engage the culture of people of different faiths is how does engaging culture increase our witness as Christians? So we'll study what is culture, what is the kingdom culture, why do we engage in culture, understanding the church culture, kingdom culture, and how Jesus engaged the culture. So, how must we, as the witnesses, as the children who have experienced the love and joy of God, bring joy to the world? It's another way. So, we need to be out there like a yeast in the dough to penetrate and permeate our culture with the kingdom culture, and to be hospitable, to welcome people into our lives, to welcome people of all faiths before they believe in the message of Christ. They need to belong. We must allow them to belong to our groups without fear, so that one day they can come from moving from a restaurant table where we might meet them to bring them home to our kitchen table or dining table, and then eventually take them to the communion table of deeper presence and fellowship. So we have to practice hospitality, and then of course we got to continue to acknowledge all the steps for practicing the presence of God. Final module is building community. As we begin to engage people, people are going to be interested in knowing about us and about helping them to know God intimately. How do we build a safe local community for practicing unity? This is one thing that Jesus prayed: make them one, Lord, even as my Father and I are one. Lord, make them one. Unity in the triunity. This is what makes truth from little truths. Capital T truth is the fact that God, who is three persons, is one in essence, in being. And that oneness is the way to exist, not divisiveness. So God does not build a church with different doctrines and dogmas. God is building the church with one truth, that God is one and not many, just like the pagan cultures. So, church is formed out of diversity, seeking unity in the Christ. Again, the practical steps, sorry, should not be acknowledging God. The practical steps to building community would be, first of all, to abide together, to align our hearts together, and to advance our witness together in the community where we work, where we play, where we study. That's where, we need to. So, this is the entire module. May the Lord bless you and come back and be part of this amazing journey that will, you know, kind of give us a foundation to live a joyful life. God bless you all. Thank you.